Story 1. Okay, so this is one of those crazy stories that I thought would never happen to me. One day, I had to do some work at the city hall, and on my way back to the office, I stopped my car in a parking lot in front of a store to answer a call. I was inside my car on the phone when a Karen arrived with her car and squeezed right next to me, like really close. Looking over, I could tell she was pretty close. But I was willing to give her the benefit of the doubt until I heard and felt not one, but two huge bangs on my car doors. The first one was from her swinging open her car door to get out. Before I could say anything, a second loud bang happened from her opening her rear door to get her kid out of the back seats. She didn't notice me sitting inside my car as my windows are tinted, so she got her kid and started to walk off towards the store. Of course, I stopped the call, got out of my car, and told her, "Hey, excuse me, ma'am, you just damaged my car doors." To which she replied, "Oh, sorry, I have a kid. These things aren't easy, you know." She then turned around and continued walking. That's when I said to her, "Well, I'm sorry too, but it's damage to my car, and you must take responsibility." The Karen then said, "Nope." She then turned her back on me again and went inside the store. The kid ran after her, so I locked my car door and went after her. I said, "Excuse me, you can't just damage someone's car and then walk away. I was sitting inside my car when it happened." Karen then said to me, "Listen, I have a child. These things happen. It's not a big deal." She then walked back to my car door, looked at it, and said, "It's just a little scratch. Stop crying." To be honest, if she was humble and admitted her mistake like a grown woman and maybe apologized, I could have maybe accepted it. But the dents on my door were pretty noticeable, so I said to her, "Listen, I know you're dealing with children, and it can be hard. However, you still need to accept responsibility for damaging someone's property." At that, she lost it. She screamed at me, saying, "Look, I'm a mom. Look at my car. I have so many little scratches and dents on my car, and I don't go after people and try to get money out of them." I said to her, "That's not my problem. My insurance doesn't cover mommy damages." She then said to me, "Stop screaming. You're scaring my child." Now her kid was a bit confused but not really scared, and also, I wasn't screaming. She was. So I said to her, "Listen, I work hard to get my things, and I don't want my car to be damaged. What you do with your property is on you. Mine is on me. Let's exchange insurance information and not make a big deal out of this." Hearing me mention insurance, she started screaming how I don't understand how hard it was having kids, and I could easily pay for the damage myself as I probably have no family. I tried to reason with her, and she just grabbed her kid, put him in the car, and ended up driving off. I know several moms that would never have this behavior, so yeah, she was the crazy one. I ended up getting her license plate and going to the police. So the moral of the story is to make sure your insurance covers mommy damages. Oh man, I would be fuming if I was the original poster. Guys, like, not once but twice she hit his car, and not even by accident. It wasn't her trying to squeeze her way out of a tight spot. She just threw her door open, not caring about damaging other people's doors. That's such a rude move, and really, using her kid as an excuse to be able to do those things is just so sad. Like, lots of other people have kids too, right, Karen? And they go their whole lives without smacking their car doors into other vehicles. Like, that is just absurd. Story 2. I worked as a front desk supervisor for a hotel for 3 years, and I can tell you entitled hockey parents were some of the worst people ever to deal with. The worst team to visit was from California. They were affluent, cocky, and inconsiderate. The whole week, there were arguments with staff of color and other hockey parents, and we were glad we quarantined them to the top floor, the 8th floor, away from other teams. The last night of the tournament lined up with a big fight on pay-per-view, and the hockey parents were slowly filtering back from a sports bar down the road. I was on the late shift this time with the head of security, who we will call Dawn. We were laughing because it was almost peaceful. Around 11 p.m., we got a call from a frantic guest saying their bathroom light was raining. I sent engineering up to the 5th floor, and a few moments later, he called down on the radio that he needed Dawn and the other 2 engineers immediately. That's when the kitchen manager radioed, stating a part of the ceiling collapsed, and water had flooded into the kitchen. Another call rang out from housekeeping, saying the same thing happened in the laundry room and break room adjacent to the kitchen. All the flooding reports were from the same wing of the building, and we just renovated rooms on that side. We were concerned that something happened to a water pipe somewhere during construction. but the head engineer wouldn't be back until morning. That's when we got another call, this time from a businessman on the 8th floor, saying that water was rushing into his room from the hallway. Don headed up there. Don came back down about 30 minutes later, and he was furious. He was soaked up to his shins. One of the California hockey parents got wasted and decided he wanted a bath. He then plugged up the tub and turned the nozzle on high. The guy then went to sit on the couch and fell asleep with the water still on. Based on the timeline, talking with other parents and his son, who left the room when Dad came back drunk, the tub had most likely been running for hours. The dad was still plastered, and Don left him up there in the care of a fellow hockey parent so he could decide what to do with the general manager. I gave the rundown to the overnight staff and told them that I would be back in the morning to relieve them. It was one of those few times that I was glad to have back-to-back shifts because I could see how the whole story played out. The next morning, the general manager and the head engineer were still racking up the cost of damages, but it was easily over $10,000. In addition to his own room, he damaged recently renovated rooms on floors 8 through 4, and once it got to the 3rd floor, it followed the wiring and pipes through the walls down to the kitchen, laundry room, and break rooms, where it then busted through the ceiling. Now the thing is, there are safeguards in hotels to deal with the occasional overflowing tub or toilet, but the volume from the constantly running tub was enough to overpower the system. It was up to me to get a copy of the dad's ID and get the general manager when he arrived. The guy came down 2 hours after checkout time. His hair was well done, and he was wearing a Rolex that I'm pretty sure was my annual salary. I then signaled my front desker to get back up while I talked with the dad. When I asked for his ID, oh man, he got ugly. He then screamed at me, saying, "There's no reason you need my ID." "Why?" "What for?" I said to him. I'm afraid there is, sir. I've been instructed to get a copy for our records as there was some significant damage during your stay." At that, the guy leaned in, laughed smugly at me, and said, "Look, lady, if your little hotel can't withstand a little water, that's not my problem. I build hotels in California, ones that make this place look like a drug house, and I know for a fact that hotels are supposed to have systems to prevent flooding. Where was yours?" The guy was just screaming at me every sentence, blowing hot whiskey breath all over me. I said to him, "Yeah, sir, they do, but in this case, you happen to." He then screamed at me, saying, "I happen to? Excuse me. I know you're only doing this because I make more money in a minute than you'll see in your entire life. You think you can suck money out of me? I'm telling you right now you don't want to go down this road with me." He said that while giving me a cocky smirk. I just smiled politely and reiterated that he needed to hand over his ID, and then the general manager came whipping around the corner. He relieved me to go on break, but I heard the general manager say, "I'm trying to handle this civilly. If you want to make this difficult, I'm sure the police would be thrilled to accommodate you." I know they filed a claim with insurance, but I don't know much of what happened after that. I hope he paid for every penny. Oh, me too. Original poster. And by the sounds of it, it's definitely way more than $10,000 worth of damages, especially since it's water damage. Like, what an idiot. And I can't believe he argued with the original poster like, "I just ran the water for a few hours while I passed out. What's the big deal? It only destroyed like 4 floors." Guys, I am still in. Shocked that he passed out and let the water run for hours, and then had the nerve to blame it on the hotel. And then on top of that, basically threw his money in the original poster's face and then said they're not getting a dime from him. Aren't rich, entitled people the worst? Story 3. So here is a little backstory. I play racquetball. For those who don't know what it is, it's more or less like squash, but with a bigger and bouncier ball and also different racket styles. After years of practicing and playing, my trainer told me that he thought I was good enough and that I should enter a tournament. The winners would get a trip to play in the state tournament, and if I won that, I would also get a trip to the national tournament. So I did it. Nothing to lose, right? This happened during the quarterfinals of the state tournament. I managed to make it that far. However, when it was around 5 minutes before my next match against my next opponent, I felt someone tap on my shoulder. Here he was, a huge man just staring at me with a sort of fake smile and a natural glare in his eyes. The dialogue was something like this. The guy says to me, "Hi." I say to him, "Hello." He then says to me, "So, you do play well, boy. I was watching you." I just reply, "Thanks." Then he says to me, "You know, the boy you're about to face next is my son." and he's been practicing this for years. He's really good. At this point, I thought it was just an attempt to be a good sport. So I say, well, me too. I suppose it's going to be a really good match then. The guy says, yeah, sure about that. I was actually wondering if you could just, quit. Hearing that, I'm shocked. I say to him, quit. He then says to me, yeah, listen, my son would really love to make it to the finals, and you would actually be doing yourself a favor since I know my son would wreck you if you face each other. So, save yourself the embarrassment, kid. Hearing him say that, I was actually annoyed with his attitude, but I kept it cordial. I say to him, no, I don't think I will quit, sir. I'd like to play against your son. If he's as good as you say he is, I'm up for the challenge. The guy was about to say something else, but he stopped his sentence and just walked away, looking like he was in a really bad mood. And I swear, if looks could kill, I might have fallen over dead. So the game starts, and it was a really good game. We were actually really evenly matched. However, I was winning by a bit. A few minutes later into the game, a horn starts to blare. That means something has happened, and the game needs to be stopped. It appears that the game that was on our side, also to decide the semifinalist, one of the contestants fell and got a really bad lesion, so he wasn't able to play and needed to get to the hospital. I left the court to see what was going on and left my racket behind, which was a huge mistake. While everyone was distracted, the dad saw a chance to sabotage me so his son could win. So he entered the room and destroyed my racket. Fortunately, this wasn't unnoticed as my trainer was around. I came back just in time to hear my trainer scream, "Hey, what are you doing to that racket?" The dad said, nothing. And this actually shocked me because he lied. He then went on to say, "Oh, well, I was just assuring that nothing would happen to these rackets. But when I got here, it was like this." My trainer said to him, "I just saw you breaking the cords." The referee then came in and said, "Sir, I'm sorry, but due to your behavior, your son can't play in the tournament anymore." The dad tried to argue and said, "This isn't fair. I didn't do anything." My trainer argued back and said, "Sir, I just watched you break the cords on his racket." Suddenly, you could see the dad's face change, and the referee said, "Okay, sir, since we have witnesses to what you just did, as I've said, I'm afraid your son will be disqualified." I just heard the kid scream, "Are you serious? Thanks for not trusting in me, Dad. Even if I couldn't win, just let me lose. If my opponent is better, they deserve to win." "What part of that don't you get?" The dad just said, "Oh, come on. I was trying to help you. I'm sure you could have won anyway." That's when I chimed in and said, "Then why did you sabotage me instead of trusting him?" At this very moment, a mix of rage and embarrassment was shown on the dad's face. He then screamed at me and said, "This doesn't concern you. Also, don't be that confident. You don't have a racket, so you can't play anymore." His son then said, "No, Dad, this does concern him since you broke his racket. And yes, he does have a racket." At this point, I was actually surprised since the kid grabbed his own racket, which was way newer than mine and more expensive as well, and he gave it to me. He then said to me, "Please take this as an apology for my dad's behavior. I hope you win the tournament." The dad just screamed, "Don't give him that racket. I bought that for you." The kid just said, "Well, we owe him a new racket." So, at this moment, security arrived and escorted the dad away with his son. The dad was enraged at this moment because his son was on my side. I just felt bad for the kid for having to deal with his dad. What happened next is that I got myself into the finals, but I ended up losing against someone who was way better than me. He was a much better player than I was. You know what? Reading this, guys, I can't help but feel bad for the kid. It's gotta be tough living with a parent like that. Someone who always wants you to win to the point that they'll sabotage others to help you win when they don't even think you're good enough. And I will say, guys, I've got a lot of respect for that kid for giving the original poster his racket in the end. And hopefully, the dad learns to just let his kid lose after that. Yeah, as a parent, you always want your kid to win. I get it. But losing is just as important because a lot of the times, the losses are what drive someone to become better. Story 4. I'm a 24-year-old female, and I previously posted about one of my mother's younger friends, a Karen in her early 40s, who I first knew as carefree and wonderful until she had her first kid. That child ended up being a complete brat with her mother's encouragement. But soon, Karen had another child, a son, 4 years old, who I did kind of like because he wasn't as intense as his older sibling. As of last night, that's changed, though. For some context, my mother's greatest joy in life other than her kids is antiquing. She dresses every room in her house very carefully, and she'll often stop at every vintage shop around to find a piece of furniture, sometimes using road trips to find new antique stores and examine what's inside them. I used to hate going with my mom to these stores, but since she took all three of us kids and told us that these used to belong to other people, I think it gave us an early respect for other people's things. We were never the kids to break stuff or jump on furniture in our homes or anyone else's, and I'm pretty sure that contributed to it. When my mom was pregnant with my oldest sibling in 1990, she found a small circular wooden table with three curved legs topped with a circle made of marble. The shop owner told her it was 70 years old, so she bought it, shined it up, and stuck it in her living room, where it became a staple of our house. The coffee table lasted her through 3 kids, college graduations, a move in 2000, and countless family parties and events. Still shiny and looking new and gorgeous, it's as much a part of the family now as any of us kids. Now, until last night, Karen's birthday recently occurred, so since she had given Mom a birthday celebration, Mom decided to return the favor, inviting Karen, her husband, and their kids to our house for lobster. I'm not a fan of this. Whenever Karen and her kids come over, my mom makes a serious effort to give the kids something fun to do while the adults talk. We have a collection of coloring books, blocks, Legos, dolls, puzzles, action figures, and a TV in the basement from when my siblings and I were growing up. Mom even bought them some new toys herself. But inevitably, the kids will play down there for like 2 minutes and then come up to their mom to complain that they're bored and then proceed to wreak havoc on our house. My parents have warned the kids many times to not jump on things, but they do not listen. The oldest kid is also very combative and likes to pull hair and hit people, as I learned firsthand. One time, he broke a holiday decoration given to my dad by his late mother. Of course, Karen coddles her kids and says that they're the best in the world and all that nonsense. I've told my mom repeatedly that I don't want to be around the kids or their parents, but she brushes it off. In fact, she likes to tease me for not interacting with Karen and not coming downstairs when they're visiting. And she says that Karen should not get in the way of me living my life. I live with my folks, and I'm invited to attend the party, but I make my usual choice of opting out. Since I've just finished the first week of a new job, I intend to celebrate with a day at the bookstore and a night with friends. But yesterday morning, as I was preparing to leave, Mom asked me why I was going to leave her to deal with the 2 kids by herself. I told her that I wasn't going to let them get in the way of me living my life. She just laughed, wished me a good day, and I left. My day was wonderful. I spent the morning and early afternoon at my favorite bookstore, then the evening with my friends at a wine bar, and the night with them at a karaoke room. I came home around 11:30 that night, where my parents were asleep on the couch watching TV. I woke them up, told them about the day, and they seemed genuinely happy it went so well. To be polite, I asked how the party went. My folks then got quiet and looked at each other, and my mother, sounding very drained, told me to go into the living room, the next room over. Confused, I looked through the doorway and immediately saw why. The beautiful table, now a century old, was broken. The 3 curved wooden legs were bisected and splintered, and there was a crack in the marble top and a collection of wood shards littering the carpet. I asked them what happened. Earlier in the day, around 6:30 p.m., my dad and Karen's husband went to pick up my grandpa plus a steamer for the lobster. While they were away, Mom had worked to settle the kids in the basement and reminded them not to jump on anything, and then gone to converse with Karen. As they were talking, my mom left to go to the restroom at the other end of the house. She stopped in the kitchen before returning and heard a crash in the living room. Mom ran in, and lo and behold, Karen's son had become bored, come upstairs to the living room, and started jumping on all the furniture, including the ancient table, and that's when it broke. And this all happened while Karen was watching. My mother was predictably horrified, and she stared as Karen examined her son for injuries and reassured Mom that the kid was fine. My mom got sick to her stomach seeing her table broken. She then took the son aside and told him in a serious but not yelling voice that Auntie was very disappointed in him and that he knew the rules at her house. Karen overheard this and berated Mom, telling her that she's the only one who can speak that way to her kids, before coddling her son and telling him that it's going to be okay, that broken objects are less important than broken bones, and he'll be fine. That's when Mom asked Karen if she herself told the kids not to jump on the furniture at our house. Karen replied casually. No, I didn't tell them not to. Why would I? The husbands then returned, and all three men were shocked. Karen's husband immediately offered to pay a carpenter to fix the table, which my mom accepted. Dinner went on, but it was cold and impersonal between Mom and Karen. This morning, Karen's son and the husband came by our house to give Mom a bouquet of flowers and also an apology and the number of a carpenter who they'll pay for. Mom put on a smile and said thank you, but she's still very upset. Nonetheless, even though the table is going to be fixed, it will never be the same. My dad doesn't want the kid in our house until he's older. Mom says she'll be keeping her distance from Karen for the time being since she can't teach her kids to respect other people's property or discipline them properly. My heart breaks for my mom. I don't plan on having kids anytime soon, but if I do one day have kids, I'll make sure to teach them at an early age to respect other people and their things. Guys, I'm so heartbroken for the original poster's mom because, even if that table does get restored, it'll never be the same again. Like a 100-year-old antique table destroyed all because Karen let her kid jump on a table. Like, who in their right mind lets a kid jump on top of a table? Like couches, I understand, because couches are bouncy and fun, but tables? Really? She does know her child could have gotten badly hurt, right? And guys, it makes it so much worse that Karen's like, oh, my kid destroyed your century-old table. Well, you know what they say? Broken objects don't compare to broken bones, or whatever mumbo-jumbo she said to try to soften the blow. Absolutely ridiculous. Karen, the original poster's mom, should call friends off at that point. Story 5. My sister, who's 28 years old, and her husband came home to my parents and me for the holidays. Her kids are 8 and 6. A couple of nights before Thanksgiving, my sister went to a concert with her husband, and she left the kids with my parents. Well, my parents decided that they wanted to go to a dinner party, and they left in the evening and left the kids there with me. Now, I was not asked to watch the kids. I hate kids. They just told me that they were going out, and they left them in the living room. My sister's kids are at this age where they can be loud and hyperactive together. You can't just put a movie on for a time and leave them. I'm in my last year of school, and I actually didn't go hang out with some friends so I could study. So, when I noticed this, I just left them alone. I went to my room to study and locked the door. I heard a lot of banging, screaming, and ruckus, and I checked on them to be sure they weren't injuring themselves. But I let them do as they pleased because I wasn't asked to watch them. They ended up causing quite a bit of damage. They broke the TV by throwing stuff at it, and they got into my mom's oil paints and smeared them everywhere. Oil paint was on the curtains, walls, sofa, rugs, ceiling everywhere. They also had thrown dog food everywhere. Water and juice were spilled in the kitchen. It was a wreck. Honestly, I just laughed. However, get this, my mom expects me to pay for damages. My mom said I was a jerk for not just studying downstairs and watching the kids. I told her it was not my responsibility to watch them. I told her to ask my sister for the money because they're her kids. My whole family's been fighting about this for several days. So, am I the jerk here, guys? I'm just going to leave it at that. Let me know your thoughts and comment down below. Do you think the original poster is the jerk? Is the original poster's sister the jerk? Are the parents the jerks for leaving? I personally think everybody is at fault here because 1. The sister should be raising kids who behave better at someone else's house. 2. The parents should have totally asked the original poster before leaving for a dinner party when they agreed to watch the kids. And 3. The original poster does seem a little petty for letting the damage get that bad. That's a little bit over the top, but as she said, she wasn't asked to watch the kids. But also, she still does live at home, so it's her house too.